Hey, first of all, thank you so much for coming tonight. I know my team feels super blessed and humbled that you took the time out of your busy weeks. I know you probably have soccer games to be at or other ministries that you're involved with, but instead you took the time to come here to talk to us about something that's obviously on our hearts, but it's also on your hearts. That's why you're in the room. And that is to create a charter airline for the kingdom, right? That's what we're getting at here. And so tonight we're going to talk about what our plan is or what we think God's plan is for us, but we also want to have a time to talk to you about what you folks are doing in your ministries so that together we can figure out if there's some synergies involved in ways that we can partner together to do the kingdom work more efficiently and effectively. But I should start off, I guess, to introduce myself. I'm Blair Greenlaw. I'm one of the founders of Missionaire. And just to speak for the group, I want to tell you that none of us thought we'd be doing something like this. I think this is really one of those God things because I tell you what, I'm the aviation part of this group, and I never thought I was going to fly a plane. I never had any aspirations to do so. In fact, when I was in college, here's a quick story just to kind of demonstrate that we're not intentionally getting involved in this thing. When I was in college, I'm about a junior, and I had it all planned out, I was saved as a young boy, but like many of you maybe, and especially in your college years, my path was right here, and God's path for me was over here. And I could see it. It was over there all the time, but I wasn't really walking down the path He wanted to. So I decided, hey, God, I'm going to be a lawyer. Not just a lawyer, I'm going to be a corporate lawyer. Doggone it. I'm going to make a ton of money. I'm going to be powerful, and people are going to think I'm cool. And then this big bucket of water hit me in the face, and God said, man, you don't know what you're talking about. A, you don't have any money, and B, you don't have the grades. So I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? I'm a history major. I painted myself in a corner. I had no marketable skills whatsoever. What am I going to do, hand out balls at the YMCA? That's what I had prepared myself for. And out of nowhere, an individual pointed me down the road that ended up preparing me for this type of event, this type of an organization. So I went to the University of Maryland. It's really close to Annapolis, Maryland. In Annapolis, there's this little crazy school there that teach guys to drive boats around. It's called the Naval Academy. And one of my roommate's best friends from home was a midshipman at the Naval Academy. And I don't know if you know anything about these crazy kids, but for the first 2 years of college, they're pretty much prisoners. I mean, they don't go out. They don't have any liberty. In the summer times, they send them out on big, great boats to go do silly stuff, just to show them how terrible life's going to be when they get older. And about their junior year, they let the reins off a little bit, and they let these kids go out and experience college like maybe you and I did. And so since they were so close to us, Maryland and Annapolis, sure enough, we were a target of opportunity, right? Our friend Kevin says, hey, I know these frat boys in College Park. Let's go there and party. And so I'd come home from work or my own social engagements, and the lights would be out in the apartment, and I'd trip over somebody, and a voice would say, hey, hey, Blair, it's Kev Robb. The boys are spending the night. I said, whatever, Kev, sure. I'll see you in the morning. Well, through this kind of interaction, we developed a relationship, and Kevin took an interest in my future. I don't know why, but he did. And he came up to me one day and he said, hey, Blair, what are you doing? I said, man, I am trying to figure that out. Do you have any ideas? And he said, well, I don't know. I'm going to go fly planes for the Navy. You want to try that? And I looked at him and I thought, well, I don't look like Tom Cruise. Maybe a little bit like Val Kilmer, but not Tom Cruise. And I said, well, I got nothing else. Let me try that. I mean, it sounds exciting if nothing else. I said, well, how do I do that? He said, well, I'll get you a phone number and I'll get you in contact with somebody. And a couple of days later, that's what happened. I made a phone call and this guy says, come down to my office, maybe do some jumping jacks. And I touched my toes and I took a test. And next thing I know, I'm in the Persian Gulf, flying airplanes off an aircraft carrier. I mean, who would have thought that would have happened? Fast forward a couple of years, God has me running a naval squadron, managing 200 people, flying 5 airplanes around the world 24 hours a day, handling the air logistics for the Navy. I mean, how crazy is this? The history major, right? I couldn't get into law school. But I didn't understand what this was all about then. But obviously he was preparing me, right? Ephesians 2:10. So my wife and I moved to Jacksonville. Here not of our own choice, but it just sort of happened. And we get to Jacksonville and we go to this church. And this crazy pastor at this crazy church is telling me I need to go on a mission trip within 3 years of going to that church, or I can't come anymore. And I said, who are you? Come on. But it really started, resonating more quickly with my wife, who said, Blair, we're going on a mission trip. And I said, well, yes, ma'am, let's do it. Whatever you want, honey. And so we signed up for the very next one, which was to Panama. And so as you know, if you've gone on a mission trips, you don't just show up to the airport and leave. There's some organizational meetings, right? Some team building activities that go on. And sure enough, during the course of that, and the experience I've had, not only with my military aviation career, and I failed to mention that I fly airplanes internationally for a major airline right now, I realized we're wasting a lot of time and money here doing these short-term mission trips. I don't get it. I was a skeptic from day one once they started telling me about the logistics. But I went down to Panama and I met Dr. Proctor, and man, my world changed. Turned upside down, right? And I learned, wow, there is something out here about this missions work that I have never known. And so we had multiple conversations with folks and a lot of quiet time and prayer time and dreams, and God's just throwing this thing at me. And so some of those folks that I had these discussions with, they're part of our team today. And that just started discussions and other people's coming into our circles, and we said, well, we can do this. We can wrest control of mission trip logistics away from the airlines, because not to really make it cheaper for you to go to Jamaica, and that would be a great byproduct, but because of the difficulty it was for us to get to Panama. Let me just describe that. Dr. Proctor alluded to it, but here it is, and you probably have worse stories, but I'll tell you mine real quick. We wake up at 2 a.m. to get to the church at 3 a.m. From 3 a.m., we take a bus to Jacksonville International. Wait around there, of course. Take a flight to Miami International. Wait around there some more. Take a flight to Panama. Land in Panama City. Hey, we're there. No, you're not there. You got to get on a bus and cross the town to the little small airport. And then get on an Air Panama flight. Right there you should be saying, that's scary. Get on an Air Panama flight that runs once a week on Fridays during that season to fly to David, Panama, to get on another bus to get to the mission site. That took all of about 22 hours. And we were told we were lucky, because some teams have to drive down to Orlando the night before, check in a hotel, and just add to their trip. So you're talking days. Now, I thought that was bad enough, but then when I started seeing that, hey, we're witnessing to these Nobi Indian tribe in Panama. They're not considered unreached because there's churches nearby. But there's all those people around the world, there aren't churches nearby. Do you know 40% of the Earth's population are considered unreached? There's a definition of unreached here by the Joshua Project. Maybe it's backwards, next one. An unreached people groups means pretty much that there's not an indigenous or Christian population there. So that means there's less than 2% of the population where these tribes live that know Jesus. So that means these individuals do not have access to the life. Not talking too much. We're done? Done! I can yell. You want me to just yell? You guys can hear me? All right. This is better. So, there's these folks. Now let's talk about the Western Brazil, okay? I told you how hard it is to get to Panama, but let's talk about Western Brazil. Let's add 2 days of travel to get to Western Brazil. Now, you and I, if we're average Americans, get 2 weeks of vacation a year, right? Something like that, if we're lucky, a little bit more. So you're going to sacrifice one of those 2 weeks to go on a mission trip. Yeah, I understand we're trying to be obedient. But how does it feel when someone tells you, out of that week you're investing, 4 days you're traveling, 3 days you're actually on scene? But to me and you, that seems like a waste of time, wasted money, right? Well, unfortunately, that's where the unreached people are. So what do you and I do? Well, we'll go on a mission trip, but we'll go on one that's easier to get to. So what happens to the unreached? They remain unreached, right? Because we are dependent upon commercial air travel to get us to cities so we can go out from there. But if you're traveling to a city, chances are there's a church in that city, so guess what? Those people aren't unreached because there's an opportunity for them to hear the gospel. This broke our hearts. My team says this can't be so. So, we've decided to do this, create this organization, and we're here tonight to talk to you about our hopes and dreams, but also to hear your hopes and dreams, to find out what you folks are doing, and to figure out how together we can better walk out what it says in Matthew 28. Because as you know, it doesn't say go to a nation. It says go to, the operative word, all nations. And so we need to do that to be obedient. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. Okay, how is this going to look? Well, based in Jacksonville, Florida, now you can put up the picture of there we go. Based in Jacksonville, Florida, we have the opportunity to service Caribbean, Central, and South American mission trips. So we want to partner with you to do what you're already doing. And if your church is not involved with missions work, well, we want to help you figure that out. We want to help you get there. And then, when those airplanes are downrange into those regions of Central and South America, we want to be able to take that asset, and we're going to take that asset further into the reaches of the Amazon, into places where it's more difficult to get to, where you can't get by taking standard commercial air travel. Now, that's what's on our mind right now, that's what's on our heart right now, but that's just the start of it. I get phone calls and emails from folks around the country because part of this vetting process, I wanted people to tell me I'm crazy and I shouldn't do this. So we send out letters and made phone calls. And so pastors from Southern California and Texas and Chicago, well, they're telling me, if you build it, we will come. If you prove that it can happen in Jacksonville, we want you to replicate it here. And so that, I think, is what God is going to do with us too. And then there's what's really on our hearts as missionaire. Like I said, taking the gospel to the unreached. Yes, we're gonna help all the ministries everybody's involved with now, that we're involved with, that we love. But our hopes and dreams is to break down that barrier that commercial aviation has to keeping us from those people groups. And we want to put airplanes downrange in other areas of the world. The 10 to 40 window, if you're at all familiar with missions work, that's where the unreached people group live. And you notice the Western Hemisphere is not there. That's where people do not have access to the gospel. So by placing airplanes around the world, just like the airplane we want to fly out of Jacksonville, let's think of one in Dakar, Senegal. We can reach all of Africa. Putting one in the Philippines or Indonesia, we can reach all of Southeast Asia. And then putting one in Eastern Europe. From there, we fly in missionaries, missions teams, and then branch them out to where the gospel isn't. And in that activity, we take the gospel to the unreached. So that is our dream. And that is our hope. But we're bringing you in a room because we can't do it alone. And this isn't going to be a sales pitch, but God's put limits on our team. And the limits are we run in the same network. And so we need to expand our network. And so we've invited you to this room because we need your help to do that. So, I'm a social media novice. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never had a Twitter account or a Facebook page, but I know you all do. And I'm asking you tonight to help support us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. I know that sounds silly and generic, but it works. I've become a believer in social media and the power of social media and how it could spread a message and how it can help us create something that can change the world. And secondly, I'm going to ask you to go back to your organizations and tell them, we need to meet this guy and his group. We need to find out what they're doing. Ask them to schedule a meeting with us. We want to come and see what you guys are up to and help you better do what you're already doing. And finally, if you know somebody that has been blessed with lots of resources and he's looking for a place to put that, please send them our way too, because obviously we need to fundraise. So that's pretty much it. At this time, we're going to enter a question and answer session, but I just want to say one more time how blessed we are feeling tonight that you showed up to this room. And our intention was to pack this place out, but if you're a church person, you understand you're very busy and it's tough to get a hold of you, and oh my gosh, we worked our butts off to do that. But even though every seat isn't taken here, I want to let you know that I've been contacted by numerous organizations and folks that say, hey man, we couldn't make it, but can you schedule a meeting with us? So the word and the idea of missionary is out there. And I want you to know you're in the grassroots start of it. And with your help, we will make this happen. That's all I got. So, any questions We're going to break up afterwards, and our team's going to be around the room if you want to hold off your questions there. But if there's one that somebody thinks can help everybody in the room, holler it out.
There.
Rob. Oh, sir.
Apologize for being late.
No. We estimate, and these are the questions I was ready for. All right, we estimate the aircraft cost, and we're looking at 3 different types of airplanes. And I didn't mention this, but these airplanes, we're going to retrofit them so that you can carry all people, 30 passengers, all cargo, or a mixture of both. But we're looking at, it's a class of airplane, and at about $2.5 million. Now, our hope is to raise a little more than that to get us through that first year of operation. However, we are not intending to go back and into the well to ask for more and more funds. We've created a business plan and we've vetted it out, and we're pretty confident once we have that asset, we'll be completely solvent. We're not going to keep coming back to you over and over again. And if we were going to do that, I wouldn't be part of this organization. Mr. Proctor, Dr. Proctor.
Would you be able to take people out of other places out of the Southeast, like North Carolina, South Carolina, or would you bring them in here and then fly them out of Jackson?
Great question. And so you guys have seen kind of where we launched this in Jacksonville, but there is opportunities in Orlando and Daytona and South Carolina. And I've already not committed, but I told folks, yeah, we want to partner with you too in these different regions. And all it takes is a little bit of planning and logistics. And it's flying a team down, pick up another team coming back. Empty legs hurt, and they cost money. But our model has it that we're going to do so many other kinds of activities that it is going to support those trips that might not be cost effective. So that's in our plans to do. Yes, sir. Sir.
Larry, you might give folks an idea of the individual cost on if they had a mission team of 22 people going to Panama, what that costs today going commercial with all the logistical nightmares of that versus if you could take 22 people on mission.
Great point. Okay, I'll tell you my mission trip because that's the one I know I'm most familiar with, and Dr. Proctor can back us up here. Airfare alone for my trip was $950 round trip. That's just airfare. That's not bags. That's all other stuff. That was airfare. And Mission Air, the last I checked, we could do it for $750. I told you it was 22 hours to get to Panama, and it would take us 6 hours to get to Panama, and that's into David.
Say that again.
$938, I think, was what we paid, and for what?
And how many hours?
22, and then now we're going to reduce it to like $750 and 6 hours. That's one way. Anybody else? Well, cool. One last thing I need to mention. Yes?
Question, what would the savings be on like a...
Upstairs.
I'm up here.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, what would the savings be on like an African or Asian type trip?
Yeah, and honestly, the airplanes, we are going to be limited to Central and South, or Caribbean, Central, and South America. And that has everything to do with the FAA. The FAA is not going to bless me with a 737 out of the gate. I mean, you got to walk before you run, right? And so we're not going to be able to cross the ocean. Now, I mentioned for deploying these airplanes. And so I haven't looked so closely at how much mission trips cost going to Africa, but my thought is what's going to end up happening is we're going to be able to charter larger 737s, 757s, get mission teams in country, and from there fly on mission aircraft, throughout the region. So I can't give you the exact number, but I'm sure it's going to be less. Mr. Gavigan, go ahead.
What does that, so Caribbean, Central, South America, what's the picture of unreached people groups look like in those areas?
Right, and it's a good question. And like I was just telling you about the Novi Indian tribes, I don't know how many of them are Christians. It doesn't seem like that many, but I can't speak particular. But an unreached people group is less than 2% of the population are Christians. They're evangelical Christians. And so, oh my gosh, that could be Jacksonville. We're all reached because there's these churches here, but how many people are actually Christians? So if you look at Central and South America, most of those countries, that is the fewest amount of unreached people groups in the world, in this region we live in. However, that doesn't mean there's still not tens and thousands of people that are unreached. And let's add on to the fact that there are people that are deemed reached that don't have access to the gospel. It's just the fact that there's a church nearby that consider the Joshua Project, who creates the statistics, say they're reached. Yes?
Larry, besides the ticket you were talking about, just simply for your seat, a lot of the mission trips, you have to, all the materials, supplies, everything that goes before everybody. So how much of that can you consolidate on that flight to save dollars as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. And let's take a quick snapshot of a trip to Jamaica, maybe. Jamaica trips here, sometimes you can fly out of Jacksonville, sometimes you have to rent a bus and go down to Orlando. And it's tough for me to beat a trip to Jamaica because it's such a short leg, and there's so many carriers that go in there. They really reduce the cost, but I'm pretty competitive because of what you're talking about. Carrying extra ministry bags, I mean, at $50 a pop or 75 or whatever you're at. Late, and let's talk about churches and trying to fill up mission trips. Well, there's a lot of changes the last second. All adds up in dollars. Extra nights in hotels all adds up in dollars. So in reality, on paper, I'm a mission an airline ticket to Jamaica out of Orlando is like $450 or something in that nature. I'm doing it at like $525 is the last I looked. It depends on the price of fuel, honestly. But if you factor in all the rest of the problems and all the rest of the issues, I mean, I think it beats it. Not to mention the fact that you can bring whatever you want on the plane. You can bring medical gear. You can bring, parts for your trucks that you're working on. And let's not forget, having this asset, that opens up the church to do all kinds of activities. Our intention is not just to take short-term missionaries, to Jamaica and Panama and even to the unreached. We're going to be here for disaster and humanitarian relief, right? Jimbo Stockton was telling you about what he did in Haiti. Guess what happens in Haiti when there's a hurricane? Well, commercial air travel stops. Everybody leaves town if they can. There's nobody that can fly and supply. So you got people hurting, dying, and there's no vehicle for them to receive the help they can. And so having a charter airline dedicated to kingdom work, once a disaster like that happens, we're ready to deploy it to that problem. Let's talk about church planting, okay? I'm not so naive to think that we're going to take, one trip of missionaries into Brazil and make everybody Christians. No, you got to do some work, some heavy lifting there. You got to plant some churches, and that takes multiple trips, right? So we're intending on doing all those kinds of activities as well. Wow, a lot of questions, Mike.
On the operational side, for the business, for your mission, are you going to stay in country during this time, or what's your backload and how you plan out the operation?
The way we're planning on is find a team in, find a team out. So you want to save empty legs, but if we can't fill up, have a trip coming back, then that's exactly what we'll do. We'll stay in country, or like I mentioned in the presentation, if we have an opportunity to support the local missionaries that want to go further afield, downrange where it's tough to get to. I mean, that's really why, like I told you, that's where our heart's at. So we are committed to do those kinds of activities, first and foremost. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I take that to the financial side of operations too, because fundraising, you're $2.5 million to get to your plane.
Right.
And then you got dead legs and backstop. You got a lot of issues.
The point is to eliminate those deadhead legs, and that's when we made our model. We based it on 73 trips a year, Rob, I think it was 73 trips a year. So if you count, that's not that many. All right, and so it's all just a scheduling issue, and that's what I've done for years and years and years. It's a scheduling issue. So what we're going to try to do is to focus on a region at a time. Or let's talk about Panama. Well, Panama's right there next to Costa Rica. So you bring a team into David, and then you take a short flight that doesn't cost much money at all to San Jose and bring them back. And so that's the way you maximize this. And like I said, we're going to support this ministry by doing some other type of activities. It's we're going to, if we need to, it's dedicated for this kind of work, but when the season's low, I mean, we're going to use the asset to do some other things to do our own type of fundraising via actually, bringing in some proceeds. Yeah.
With the aircraft that you're talking about, it's smaller than
Yes, ma'am.
Commercial aircraft. And so you mentioned flying into David. Is David the final destination in Panama that people are currently
It is.
traveling to? So you can eliminate that extra leg and fly into smaller locations.
Correct.
And like you said, in Haiti, for example, if there's a hurricane or something, you could land,
Anywhere.
not necessarily needing a landing strip.
Well, no. You have to land on the land strip. But these airplanes we're talking about a 5,000-foot runway is all it needs. And that's pretty much the basic. When you build an airport, you build a 5,000-foot strip-ish. I mean, if you want to have anybody land there, that's what you need. Now, this aircraft is not going to land on dirt strips. I mean, it's a bearing strength issue. It's a physics thing. You need to have, a runway that can support the landing of an airplane. And so it won't be able to, this size of an airplane, it has to have asphalt. But the fact that it can land on these shorter runways, I mean, just increases the reach. I mean, it allows us to take this in so many more and different places where folks actually don't have access to the gospel. And that's the point. Yes, sir.
Let's say reaching, some remote places in Brazil, you have to fly into a airstrip that has customs first, and then clear that. And then bounce out.
You got it. Yep. So it's a little logistical, working. And not only that, Gary, it depends on where you are, how close you are to a major city now. Like I just said, if you're close to a major city, you're less likely to have unreached people groups there, right? Yeah. So, that'll be the issue. You'll be flying to Manaus, for instance, which is the northern part of Brazil, and then be able to take it downrange from that. That's going to cost a little more money because you're going to incur a cost of the approach, descent, and then taking back off. But in reality, I mean, that'll all be worked in, and that's part of the model.
Blair, with all the planes out in the desert and mothball, is there any opportunity of somebody donating to a nonprofit?
Yeah, it'd be great. I talked to a guy, contact one you all gave to me from Samaritan's Purse, and they were offered some DC-10s, big airplanes. And yeah, I'd love it, but there's no way I'm going to be able to fill up a DC-10 out of Jacksonville enough to pay for it right now. So downrange, you know what? I think this is going to grow to a point that we're going to be able to service that and maybe get us a larger airplane, 757 or something, to take people across the ocean to forward deploy them. But that's downrange quite a bit. But it'd be great to have it. We're also limited by the FAA, like I said. Yeah.
So what about leasing equipment to start on the front end and then gradually as you get?
Yeah, it's not. We've talked about that, and we've talked to leasing companies, and it's too expensive. I mean, the amount they want to lease an airplane per year, they're really just leasing it to rich companies, that aren't trying to operate within a budget, so you can't. Same thing with chartering. I mean, I try to do the charter thing. I'm like, well, let's just start this off with charter, and that doesn't work either, because the expense is too much to make the model just inefficient, or non-solvent. Sure.
What are your big fundraising plans for right now? You talked to a few of them, but trying to see how you can really market this and raise money.
Yeah, that's why you're here. What are?
We got the checkbook.
No, that's not what I'm asking from this room. I'm asking for ideas. I mean, like I said, we're at the grassroots, and I'll tell you what, our team does not have a fundraiser on the team. We've reached out to a few people, but it really hasn't brought that kind of expertise that would be nice. So right now we're going on the social market, social media, word of mouth, to start off with. And if someone could, start me a check tomorrow for $4 million, hey, we're off and running. And that just might happen. This is in God's time, though. So, yeah, it's really, we're working on that part. People have talked to me even tonight about grant writing and all these other things and things that we've thought about, but we just haven't pursued them so heavily because of time, and we just don't have the expertise yet. But if you know somebody that's a good fundraiser, I want her number. Ma'am.
Speaking of grant writing, I think there's supposed to be something happening this Saturday, June 14th, at the Promise at their station. Something is supposed to be grant writing, and it's, I guess they know where a lot of governmental funding is available. So there's something like that's.
That sounds real cool and an opportunity. I've looked into a little bit of grant writing, and my team, we're trying to vet that out. It's pretty expensive just to get into it. I mean, you talk about grant writing at full service. Usually, the numbers I saw were like I didn't hear about it. That sounds great. So if you can give us some information about it, we'd love to have. have that. Or just go and let us know what it's all about and tell us who to call. Sir?
Will insurance be quite expensive?
Yeah, insurance is expensive. I mean, obviously, but that's all factored into our model. We have insurance factored in the model. We have price of salaries factored in the model. Well, we're trying to work it on. Oh, by the way, I got to tell you, I can't tell you how many retired pilots or current pilots or people just calling us up and saying, I want to do this. Can I fly for Jesus? And I'm like, yeah. You're going to fly for free? Yeah, sweet. And this is not something we factored in. We factored in paying all these guys, but I think we can be able to get a lot of volunteer. But you asked about insurance, and yeah, we factored that in there, sir. So it's all part of our annual operating budget, which I said we're planning on with the amount of money we charge for the service. We're going to have to, which is going to be better than you're going to pay Southwest Airlines to get where you need to go. But it's all going to be built into that.
Blair, for the restrictions of the FAA, what is the process of moving past those?
Yo, it's ugly. So I want to, apply for a certificate. It's called an operating certificate by the FAA, but they're not going to talk to me for multiple reasons. The first reason is, who am I? I mean, I don't have any experience running a commercial airline. I mean, they'll like Delta Airlines will say, all right, we're going to open up a commuter airline. And they say, okay, good to go. You have a history. But somebody that's just started and has no history, so they're not going to just, And secondly, the process can take years and years and years because they're, government cutbacks and all those other things, not to get political. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to operate it under somebody else's certificate, a Part 135 certificate, which is going to limit our airplane size to 30 seats. But as soon as we start operating, then we start the application process. And so we'll develop our own safety programs. We've developed our own pilot training programs and all those sorts of things, which are all part of the application process for your own certificate. And instead of applying for a Part 135, which will limit us to an airplane, and I say 30 seats, but honestly, they can get up to 50 seats. You just have to get a waiver. But in that process, we'll be applying for a Part 121 certificate, which allows us to operate much larger airplanes. But yeah, it's a huge hurdle, but we figured a way around it. Yes, sir.
So I know you'd love to get $3 million gifts, but what's your marketing plan? Are you guys going after $1,000 gifts? Are you going after 100,000? Or have you kind of thought about that? Are you going to take it all, or what's your?
We'll take anything. Yeah, we'll take anything. And I hate talking fundraising, Blair. I'm just not a fundraising guy. I appreciate you asking that because that is the weakness, guys. I'm going to full disclosure. That is our huge weakness. We don't have a solid fundraising plan. We don't. Not that we haven't tried thinking about it, but you know what? We're just hoping that someone comes along that's inspired by God to tell us, hey, we're going to help you out with this. But we don't know where it's going to come from. I mean, like, let's say you're going to plant a church. You don't know where the funds are going to come from. Some guy might just come one day and write you a check. So we're just praying a lot. We're praying a lot. And any correspondence that I get, I answer and I talk and I investigate. Our next, and we're already developing this kind of strategy, is communicating with believers that are publicly Christian that we know have money. But here again, you got to get a hold of them. So we're talking like Tim Tebow or those types of people. And so I really think Missionaire is going to be put in front of them by groups of people in this room. I mean, talking on Twitter, Facebook, and all that other stuff, they're going to be like, what's this crazy stuff about? Did I tell you I talked to Francis Chan's administrative assistant? I mean, he's a huge pastor out in California, or was. He's now writing books and being a millionaire. And he's like, wow, we got you on our radar. My aunt came down for a wedding, and in this group of people, one of the guys was a congregant, if that's the correct word, I'm not sure, but goes to Willow Point Community Church. Bill Hybels' church, huge church, and they have a huge missions heart. We're on their radar too. So I don't know where it's going to come from. We're just trying to go down any road. But here again, if somebody knows a nonprofit fundraiser, send them our way. Yes, sir.
So I regularly attend the Church of 1122, and they've got 7 or 8 different mission spots. Do other churches in Jacksonville, do they have that same sort of mission picture? Like, where does some of these other churches in Jacksonville go? And do other churches in Jacksonville sort of have that same mission model that, my home church.
And this is part of the whole beauty of missionaire, because it says in Matthew 28, it doesn't say, hey, a couple of you guys go. It says, you're a disciple of Christ, you go. You go to all nations. You don't create a huge mega church in Jerusalem and convert the city. You go into all nations. That's what Paul did, right? He planted all these churches, and what ended up happening? Well, Christianity spread, and here we are today. But a lot of churches, not everybody has a missional mindset. But what we're going to do is we're going to take you folks to where you're going currently, and take other churches who aren't going anywhere, but have a kind of a thought, we want to get into this ball game, take them someplace. And then, of course, amongst themselves and amongst their peers, they're going to talk about what's going on, and in so doing, inspire more churches to be missional. So that's really what we need to do. Because people have this huge barrier to walking out the Great Commission. You can name a number of things. Money, time, whatever. I got football to watch. We need to break that down and say, hey, it's not as hard as you think it is, and oh, by the way, it's going to change your life. So that's part of our message.
Have you posted that video that you put together? Because that would be kind of a quick and easy way to say to somebody, hey, Pastor, watch this video and give me a call or something like that.
Yeah, Ron, you're tracking. I like it. That's part of what we're doing tonight. We came up with this video, and then Tim's videotaping me, and who knows what kind of terrible footage we're going to get out of that, and misspokes and whatever. But we're going to put that together, and we're going to be forwarding that along to folks that we know are already involved in missions ministries, and then folks that we know that aren't, but might have some kind of resources they can send to us. Let's just talk about that real quick, though. But you think about these big churches. They all have their own fundraising issues, and so it's kind of tough to go to that well. So we're going to have to kind of create our own. Sir.
So maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but basically the model is you need to get this fundraising done so that you can have your capital in place. And then your operations and maintenance expenses, that's going to be covered by the missions themselves.
Yes.
And the only way that it really makes sense for those churches to use this service is because they don't have to tack on that capital cost onto the cost of actually doing the trip, right?
We're just going to be like
It's just gonna be a service.
JetBlue Airlines. Who do you care? Who do you want to use? Well, I'm going to use that guy because he's easier and cheaper.
Speaking of JetBlue, has anybody thought about possibly approaching the airlines themselves?
Yeah, and then
Seeing if there's any of them that might be willing to partner with you in this kind of an effort?
sure, that's a great question. Yeah, and they're sitting there here again. Well, you got to fill a 737. If you say you want to go to Western Brazil, well, you got to fill a 737. You got to get 150 people. Oh, by the way, we want them all to leave out of Orlando.
I didn't mean partner with you, like operate within what they're doing for their for-profit business.
Uh-huh.
But maybe as a some sort of a to give goodwill and for publicity, and even to make people that might go on that trip like me more likely to fly Delta or JetBlue or something like that. We donated a regional jet to these guys, and we're helping them with operations and maintenance because we think it's the right thing to do for people elsewhere. I don't know, something that would be, corporate giving is a huge thing in this,
I'm tracking. Yeah.
this country, and I think it'd be an incredible opportunity for a large airline as part of their corporate giving program to participate in something like that.
That's a great suggestion. So, where's Whitney? Whitney, can you put that in the notes, and we'll pursue that. Sure, that's a great idea.
Can
Yeah.
I spring word on that too?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you look at an airline like Southwest, I just read something recently that if you're a small business person or starting a small business, go talk and try to get business from small business people because they remember what that felt like. So you got a Southwest Airlines who remembers what it felt like when the Deltas and the Americans and they said you can't come play, we're going to shut you out of our airports. So you wonder if there might be a little bit of a kindred spirit for somebody like Southwest that you could say, hey, we're a startup, this is our heart. So there may be some receptivity to some of the underdogs that might surprise you.
Yeah, my only, and those are great, and maybe it might be my commercial flying experience, and my thought would be, why would they give away profit? If they're able to charge people money to take them to these mission sites, well, why would they give me an airplane to do it for, and undermine their own profit margin? Maybe they would.
Make that a line item
Yeah.
or PR.
They sure might.
So it's a big line item.
And so this is something that I'm not experienced with, but you
So
probably,
why
right?
not missionary?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
You can almost see the commercial on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Delta Airlines supported Missionaire. This is what they do. We think this is a great idea. We gave them a plane, helped them with operations and maintenance, and organized everything.
right.
And now they're, they show videos of missionaries coming off helping people, in third world countries. I think there might be someone out there that thinks that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's got the money to do it as part of a, corporate giving purse at one of these airlines.
It's a great point. It's a great point, yeah. Actually, we actually have a
Do the whole thing. They make,
yeah. I haven't disclosed who I work for. I work for Delta. And, and I just know what Delta Airlines is going to do. They're not going to do that because they're going to say to you, they're going to say to me, well, that's going to hurt my Muslim business or my, I don't want to go here, but you know what I'm saying, the Hindu, they have a huge business in the Middle East and a huge business in Japan. I mean, Japan's all Buddhist and Hindu. They're like,
you're not going to, even if you was Delta, Delta's not going to talk about it in that region. Delta's only going to talk about it where it makes sense.
yeah, you have a good point. In Southeast United States.
Probably not your answers.
Yeah.
It's probably someone more like Southwest or JetBlue or
Yeah.
Frontier, I don't know, more regional airlines.
That's a good point. I mean, those are good suggestions, and we want this feedback tonight too, folks. I mean, we appreciate that. We do actually have an in at Delta. One of our board members knows somebody who knows somebody, but the seed has been planted. I don't know if it's going to go. I didn't expect it to answer so many questions. Thanks, Chad. All right, we're going to wrap it up here in 2 minutes. Go ahead.
One thing that we did on our website was put a donate button right on the website, but you can also attach it all your emails with a direct link to get people that want to maybe even just give $100 or whatever that goes out in all of your correspondence that you can start getting money right away.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we have one. It's probably buried. That might be the problem. It's on the front page, but way on the bottom. And we've got donations through that. And I haven't looked at the website how many hits we've had recently, but it goes like this, So like after tonight, you guys can tell some people, and we'll get more and more. And so we'll see how that happens. But yeah, I don't know where all the donations come, but everything obviously is going to help. So we'll look into making that a little more prominent. Website people. Man.
Can't hear you.
About the airlines, what about Virgin Airlines, Richard Branson?
Sure, yeah. Folks, I honestly think in the bottom line of working at an airline, thinking there's no way that these folks would want to have us operate, but maybe a smaller one might be an avenue to pursue.
Another, totally off the wall, John Travolta. He has his own.
Yeah, he has a 757. It's a nice airplane. Right. Satan's really, he has his grip on America, man. So we really got to fight. We have an uphill fight, but we're going to happen. We're going to make it happen. All right, folks. Hey, so lastly, I don't know if you guys saw that pre-flight checklist. At the bottom of it is a contact form. I ask you please to fill it out. We're not gonna harass you, but it's just a way for us, to let you know what we're doing, what our progress is. Here again, we are in the fundraising stage, and you are at the grassroots. And I hope that I expressed the idea well enough. I don't know if I did or not, but the intent is to take the gospel to unreached people groups. And today, as it is, we don't have access to make that happen. So when you pray about us, just pray that we're doing what's right, and then we're following God's word and all those sorts of things. So thanks for coming. That's loud.